lots of folks love kids, but they struggle doing the technical aspects of high quality instruction. And there are a lot of high quality instructors out there who finding that big heart for kids can be very difficult. And what we're trying to do at our schools is hit the balance of both so that both grow at the same time.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashanta Harris and Jim Gunner. Real talk about charter schools, from the boardroom to the classroom, powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
Well, colleagues and friends, we would like to welcome you back to the Bold by Choice podcast. And so this season, we're excited because we are shining a light on really, really bold educators, bold school leaders that are redefining what's possible for students and for communities. Well, I am Vashanta Harris.
And I'm Jim Gunner. This season, we're traveling across the country to spotlight schools worth bragging about. I like to call them the wow schools, places where belonging, purpose, and academic excellence come together to win for kids.
That's right. And today, Jim and I are beyond excited. I don't even have the right word for how we're feeling today, because we are welcoming a leader who has helped to build and shape a very student-centered, emotionally and mentally grounded, high-performing charter community in Nashville, Tennessee. And yes, I'm talking about Valor Collegiate Academies.
Valor's known for circles, the compass model, a diverse community, whole child focus, academic rigor, working together. And we're going to have Stephen Palmer with us today. And Stephen's a TFA grad. He's been one of the core leaders at Valor. And you're going to hear a story that is worth emulating because Alert, not only are they doing a phenomenal job for students, they actually have had 60 plus other schools come study their model so that they can adopt it across the country. So audience, get ready. This one is worth taking notes on because you're going to hear some stuff that could help you build a winning organization for kids.
That's right. Welcome, Stephen, to the show.
Vashanta, hi, Jim. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, we're honored to sit and to learn from you today. And, you know, Jim and I have been on this journey with the show. And one of our themes is talking about chartering, and that is an action verb. And a lot of what it is that we do in this space is we're learning from what's new and what's different, what's serving students and their communities in new and different ways. And we're really pumped to hear about how Valor does that. So I'd love to invite you, Stephen, to kind of start off by sharing a moment with us or a story where you saw Valor at its best, a moment that reminded you, why does this school and community exist?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just 2 days ago, actually. Our network sets what we call our big rocks or big annual goals each year for the coming school year. And our focus at Valor this year is around cultivating student joy through all aspects of school. And part of that work is actually the formation of a student-led coalition called the Change Makers, which is multiple kiddos across multiple grades who act as the voice and representation for the students at large. And I got to meet them before they went and introduced themselves to their peers, who they were, how they work, how they can get feedback from their peers that goes directly to me and my team, and encourage them how to take their student feedback survey, which we give multiple times throughout the year to make sure that our kiddos understood why it was so important to use their voice. And it's awesome, not just because student advocacy is so important and impactful to me, but it just reminds me about how, at our best, Valor empowers students to find what we call their noble purpose or something larger than themselves that they can be connected to.
Stephen, one of the things we like to focus on is, Simon Sinek, begin with why. Talk to us about the design. What was Valor created to do and why?
Yeah, our founders, Todd and Darren Dixon, are twin brothers, funnily enough. And Todd was in California as an administrator at Summit Prep Schools in California, and running very high quality schools there. His brother Darren was a therapist at the time, working at the Seneca Center in California, who helped support students with a diverse needs depending on their particular mental health support needs. And my understanding is the question came up of what would it be like if we had a school that did both, provided really top quality academics and supports for students while also holding the whole student um, and caring for the emotional and social needs that kiddos need as they're thriving in middle school and high school, particularly. And so my understanding is it just so happened that Mayor Carl Dean was looking to expand the charters in Nashville and was connected to Todd. And from that connection, he was able to recruit Todd over, and Todd kind of brought his brother over. And we were able to get things started about 12 years ago. I think, yeah. And then the question came up of, well, how do you do that in an intentionally diverse by design community? Um, Charter schools obviously range in mission and focus, and Todd and Darren wanted to not just do this work of high quality, high impact academics and shaping social and emotional supports for students, but also wanted their school to look like the community they were in, which is South Nashville, which is a highly diverse community. And so our school doesn't have one dominant population or one dominant identity marker. It really reflects the wide spectrum of human experience. That bet then and still is if we can bring those two big ideas together, comprehensive human development, high impact academics, we can actually offset some of the crises that are facing kids then and kids now, which are polarization, the mental health crisis that many folks are facing in the world today, and the opportunity gap for scholars across the wide range of needs in our community.
But Shauna, what I love in that story is the idea of chartering, right? Empower people to do new and different. And here's a group that came in and said, you know what, we got a different idea. It's new and different. And we think we can apply it to schools and kids. And boy, the story of the impact that we're going to hear is phenomenal.
That's right. And, we were talking the other day, Stephen, and I was really compelled because you were sharing with us the kind of background of how Valor got started. And I love that you brought up those crises. You all were very strategic in what you were seeing in your community, the kind of gaps that were there, right? So we're talking about the mental health crises. We're talking about students that have needs beyond academics. And you have not let go of a high academic standard. And so I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about how you all have created that balance between making sure that students are supported in a well rounded way and you are a high performing academic environment.
Yeah, sure thing. Both models are balanced because they're intentionally designed, to your point, Vashanta. We have a clear backwards mapping of what we're trying to accomplish here from the founding. We designed them for both clarity, efficiency, and consistency, but we also collect a lot of data and make them flexible enough to respond as needed. As the community's needs change in our academic model or our social emotional model, we can adjust it without losing the groundwater of what those systems are trying to accomplish. On the academic end, that looks like structured data cycles, quarterly benchmark assessments with routine data dives with our teachers to make plans to respond to what they see and adjust quarterly, as well as lesson to lesson and week to week. We have a baseline walkthrough tool that establishes what all classrooms, regardless of content, should look like for students. And then we have more comprehensive developmental arcs, which we call badges, for teachers who are beyond the baseline and want to sharpen their craft. Teachers through all of this are supported by a coach that they meet with weekly. And in fact, everybody has a coach at Valor. I have a coach. The CEO has a coach. And so you always, my statement is when I talk to middle schoolers, you don't get through middle school alone. You always have someone with you to help you. And then on the social emotional side, we're represented by this metaphor that we call the compass. It just captures our belief about human development. And that really, if I could distill it down, it's a representation of excellence in mind, in body, in spirit. What this looks like for that balance component in classrooms is you'll hear a teacher give an on compass point to students if they answer a really hard question. You might see students engaging with one another in a really difficult conversation through a structure called repair work after earning a consequence or making a middle school decision, like saying something mean. And it happens. I think middle schoolers are middle schoolers are middle schoolers. And so we have a system to support their growth and how to have a hard conversation. And then we have our weekly circle practice, which I think Jim spoke to a bit earlier, that happens where kiddos might share a part of their identity or story that's really important to them and receive that connection back from their peers. That's a lot of systems and explanation, but the gist here is our systems are designed with care and in such a way that we can measure their impact and adjust course as needed.
What I love about that is you talk about whole, balanced circles, right? We're preparing these kids for success in college, work, and life. And to navigate that journey, they need a compass.
Yeah.
And that they're developing that compass in middle school and high school. And that's a transferable thing that will guide them on their life journey. And it's beautiful that you do that. So the people that listen to the podcast know I'm a proud charter school dad. Every morning I'm not traveling. I go to Renaissance Public School Academy in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, project-based learning, and I drop off my youngest, Natalie, and she loves going to school. What did the families tell you at Valor about what feedback do you get with their ability to use their voice, to vote with their feet? What's the feedback loops that tell you what you're doing is working?
Yeah, we're very lucky. Families in Nashville could choose many schools, so many charters, and they choose us often. We have a very healthy wait list, which is pretty rare in Nashville in the charter community. But more importantly, we administer an annual family survey in the spring to see how is our team doing. And we ask the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Valor to other families? The overall average last spring across our three schools was a 9.08. And so we're very proud. I'm very proud of that data for both my school and my network. That's really important too, because we have such a diverse community that we know that with a diverse community comes diverse needs, values, expectations of what school does or doesn't do. And the fact that we've hit that balance, to your point from earlier, Jim, I'm very proud of. And if I can actually tell a more zoomed out story, we just had over at my school, the eighth grade team led their very first quarter 1 report card conferences where we invited families in. And my eighth grade team is nearly brand new to teaching. I've never felt older in my life than looking at this team of very young teachers. Um, and that can go many ways. I was a first year teacher many years ago, and it's a unique experience to say the least. And I received an email from a parent with a student who requires supports and a lot of help. And she said, I've been attending and leading parent conferences and IEP meetings for the better part of the last decade. And I wanted you to know how impressed I was with your eighth grade team during our meeting last week. And so that to me is such a important artifact of how we work with our families, both on the macro level and just those boots on the ground stories that we're doing good work.
That's awesome. We call that the paycheck you can't cash.
Yeah.
That's right. When we were talking before, I really loved the walkthrough that you gave us of what a circle looks like and feels like, and then what a classroom looks like and feels like in Valor. And so for our listeners who may be very new to understanding the special sauce of Valor Collegiate, could you give us a little bit of what that looks like and feels like for students and teachers?
Yeah. If on our bet, let's say we're on our best day, October 15th, which is a tough month for teaching. I think what you would hear or you would see are students entering and starting a do first immediately. No minute can be wasted in our schools. We have a lot to do. And kiddos would move quickly, and you would hear teachers saying, great job, you're starting your do first. Coming around collecting feedback. You would hear teachers giving those on and yes, off compass points to help students learn the behaviors that are needed in class to be successful. And you would see a very high lift next set of instructions and assignments that culminated with kiddos showing what they know on an exit ticket. That's a fairly standard structure that you'll probably find in lots of schools across the country. What makes us different, however, is if you came in on a Monday, you would see 27th grade boys sitting in a circle listening to one of their peers potentially talking about their grandfather's book that's really important to them and how it represents one of their values, and how it helps reinforce a preferred storyline for them. You might hear on a Wednesday after work a bunch of very tired eighth grade teachers sitting in a circle, maybe crying a little bit, and either sharing honestly, this work is hard. And I think I always want folks to understand you can go to a top performing school. I'm very proud of the work we've done, and this work is never not hard. But what you have is a space for people to hold one another to say, yeah, it's hard, and we got your back. Um, and then ultimately, you'd see a lot of joy. I just had mentioned Halloween in October, but Halloween in a middle school is a very unique experience. If you've been there before, you will see that your administration team running around in Pokemon costumes through your classes, and you will see a lot of smiling faces and a lot of joy, um, and a lot of focus on what it means to grow both academically and as a whole person.
Stephen, I already know how you're going to answer this question, but for our audience, do kids learn more when they're having fun, when they're joyful?
Kids do learn more when they're joyful and they're having fun, but I'm glad you asked that question. What I don't want to get across is we're cupcakes and confetti, and that's the kind of vibe we're doing. It's actually when your teachers are committed to really high quality instruction and loving kids, and you got to have both at the same time. Um, Lots of folks love kids, but they may struggle doing the technical aspects of high quality instruction. And there are a lot of high quality instructors out there who finding that big heart for kids can be very difficult. And what we're trying to do at our schools is hit the balance of both so that both grow at the same time.
So you told me a story that I want you to share with the audience. You were a rookie teacher, and a veteran was running by you and said something. Can you tell us what, like she
I
gave you the
like that story.
ingredients to the secret sauce?
Yeah. This was back. I was TFA in Appalachia, and Sandy Wilson, I don't know if she's listening, but I hope she's listening. Sandy, I love you. Ran by me. She was probably in her 60s at the time, and I was nervous for my first faculty meeting. I was wearing a tie and very buttoned up and moving very stiff. And she said, are you the new English teacher? And of course, I'm like, yeah, do I look like one? Is that how you knew? And she goes, no, you're just the only new guy in the entire building. And so I asked her, I said, hey, like, how do I do this? And she said, love the kids. You'll figure the rest out. We can teach you that. We can't teach you how to love kids. And that has stuck with me throughout my entire career.
All right, podcast audience, there's the secret sauce. Love them.
Love the kids. That's right. I love that story, and that's resonated with so many leaders and founders that we've met. And as a fellow TFAer and
Oh,
educator, one of the things, yep, one of the things I've learned is that students really shape who we become as leaders. And I haven't found an educator that has disagreed with that yet. So I'd love for you to share with us one of probably many experiences that you've had with your students and how they have helped shape the leader that you are now.
yeah. I'm going to call him T for this conversation, was a kid who I taught in seventh grade when I was very new. It was my first, maybe my second year at Valor. And our team was very similar to that eighth grade team I just described. New to the profession, scrappy, very a lot of heart, still had a lot of skill to grow. And T exhibited behaviors that made his learning difficult. And it was hard to figure out how to support his learning, both to support his behaviors and find the right levels of supports for him to access our content. I distinctly remember seeing him rip up one of my exit tickets in very dramatic fashion one day and thought, okay, something's not working. Um, we were a team of teachers and we came together, and tea was always a topic of conversation. And I have seen, and I'm sure folks and listeners have heard, and I'm sure everyone on this podcast has heard and seen those conversations go really bad. Um, we did not blame a child for their behaviors, and we kept echoing the behavior is not about us, which unfortunately sometimes we have to repeat over and over and over again. But instead we said, what are we not doing here, and what are we doing that's not working? He had a great case manager. He had a great homeroom teacher. We call them mentors or pride leaders. And so we made a plan. We made a plan that he would check in every morning, and we would get a Slack that let us know his state of being for the day, so we could prepare. His case manager ensured we were clear on his multi-tiered supports and ensured that his co-taught spaces and non-co-taught spaces had a plan for implementing them. I think like those are standard tier one and two supports and three. But most importantly, we aggressively told the story of success about T. We said we're going to love this kid and we're going to celebrate every success to build momentum, even when he does not believe it right now. And even when he is flinging hand sanitizer at the window, we've got to find every success we can get to build that momentum. And over time, T took advanced mathematics in high school, and we got to watch him walk across the stage and go to a trade school of his choice. And I think to see our old team. By that point, many of us had gone and chosen other paths or done different things in our lives, but like it highlighted the impact of a unified vision for what it means to take care of a kid and ensure the kiddo can thrive. Um, yeah,
Stephen, what I hear in that is care, love, belief in the student, a team effort, daily immediate feedback loops so you can be responsive.
absolutely.
And that's the Valor story, isn't it?
When we're our best, that rapid care and identification of like, what does this kid need right now? And how do we ensure we're progress monitoring every day to ensure they get it? Is absolutely the Valor story. And I think for 98% of our students, our tier one supports through our Compass model do a lot of that without the constant need for that focus, which means that our tier one is strong enough to create space for us to zoom in on kids who need the more intensive identified support that we can rally around.
For the Bold by Choice Nation, what I want you to hear in that is they're not waiting on year-end test scores that come in after the kids have moved on to the next grade. They're using daily feedback loops, processes, inputs, behaviors, practices. That's how they're winning for kids. And your kids are not only winning in the classroom, they're winning on the athletic fields in the courts.
Yeah, we've been very successful. Athletics is not, I will not even try to tell you that is my expertise, but what I do know is I'm learning quickly. We just won our volleyball state championships at our high school level for our girls. This is our second time in a row. So shout out to Coach Miss Kylie Harvey. But we have a world-class athletics program as well. But the thing that always stands out to me is kind of similar to what I said about you can have folks who love kids and have high skill or vice versa, and it's really hard to find that balance is our teams are regularly recognized by the state as also having top quality academics on our teams and some of the highest sportsmanship you can find, which I think finding all three is like is a unicorn of alignment. We're very, very, very proud of that.
Sounds like the trifecta, mind, body, spirit, working together. So, Stephen,
And
I want to come at
congratulations.
you again, Vashanta. Hey, you just got the easy to educate kids. They're smart, they're athletic. Anybody can do that.
Oh, is that the kind of false narrative you're throwing?
Well, that's what we usually say to schools that are winning for kids. They
Ah,
got the easy kids, right?
yeah. That is not true. But I think we are an open enrollment school, so we are a lottery system. Folks apply from all over South Nashville to come to Valor, and we make no decisions other than take who comes up on our lottery. And so I actually would say, no, we're a school who's built structures. We want every student who walks through that door, no matter their background, their needs, their values, their home, if they're in the 99th percentile in reading or the first percentile in reading, send them to us. We have the systems and supports to figure out how to help them thrive.
And you've got the data to show you can take the kids that are furthest behind and they're catching up the fastest.
That is correct. Yeah. We are regularly we say our top 1% is our anchor that focuses on academics. So we are regularly in the top 1% for both achievement of our students overall and also growth for those folks who may be further behind when they come to us.
So we've been playing around with a common thread question. And I went through a whole bunch of iterations on what it should be, but I came back to everything has to begin and end with children. And so the question we want to ask you before we get ready to wrap is what's something that your students have taught you this year?
Our team is currently working with a student named E, who's new to us this year in fifth grade, and he has required some flexible supports that we've had to learn about him. We've had to figure out how to help him trust our systems and our staff. But one thing I've learned first and foremost over the years I've been in education is when you run a middle school, your families come to you with 5 years potentially of a story about public education, and you're kind of trying to figure it out with them. So E came to us not trusting school. Um, we have a larger kind of communication stream, as I kind of talked about in my seventh grade teaching years for him. And what stood out to me when I was looking over that channel to just kind of see how his week went was it was almost entirely composed of different individuals, teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, telling the story of success and growth. And so I don't know if he's teaching me a new story, but 10 years into the game, maybe just helping me remember the same story I learned at my best when I was a teacher about tea. Yesterday, he was in our behavioral support space taking a break, and we looked over and we let him write on a whiteboard for his break, and he had written, "Okay, I think I'm starting to love this school again." And there was something very beautiful about that sentence, but also very grounded and realistic, which is like, I might not get you every day in fifth grade. Our supports are not designed to like magically transform students' love of school. But if we can get a kid to say, okay, I think I do, and I think I love school again, it reminded me that kids want
Wow.
to learn. Every kid wants to feel successful. Every kid wants to come to school and belong to something larger than themselves and feel connected to a community larger than themselves. And every kid wants to grow meaningfully. Um, doesn't matter who you are. And so when we're at our best, when Valor's at our
Mm,
best, we create a place where students love to come to school.
I'm like speechless. That is so beautiful. We look at why parents choose schools. You just wrap that up in a beautiful bow. Parents think about that is their most precious gift. Jim says it all the time. And parents want to send their most precious gift to a place where either they're going to be loved, they're going to be supported, but they're going to be basically put in a situation there where they can be coached to grow as an entire being. And for the educators out there, like, yes, academics is a part of that, but these are whole humans walking into buildings every single day, growing cognitively, academically, and all the other leads that I could think about and have left out.
Podcast Nation, that's why we wanted you to hear the Valor story and from Stephen, because you can spend time on classroom management and all the stuff that goes with that, or you can bring the secret sauce, love the kids, create connection and belonging, help them to succeed, envision success for them before they can even see it, have a team instead of a staff that's working together by design and is relentless, persistent, never gives up. And all of a sudden, the kids love school, the parents love school, the adults love school, and they want to be there and they want to be fully engaged. That's where the magic happens. That's why we wanted you to hear the Valor story.
Stephen, thank you so much for being here, sharing time and space with us, and sharing these beautiful stories about your school, your community, and most importantly, your students.
Shanta, Jim, thank you so much. This was wonderful. It was such a pleasure to just get to talk about the work that I love to do.
All right.
So, friends, if this inspired you, please share it. Share it with an educator or a parent who believes in schools built on love, built on high expectations, and that create community. And we'd invite you to tell us your own hashtag school brag story. We want to hear about it.
Great schools don't happen by accident. They happen because leaders choose courage, they choose care, and they choose commitment every single day. Stephen, thanks for choosing that and being at this and doing the good work. We're super proud of what you're accomplishing. We're super proud to let the podcast nation hear from you.
Thank you all. Again, thanks for the chance just to talk about it.
So, family, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like us, follow us on socials. And of course, we always want to hear from you. How are these stories landing in the community? Until next week, and I tell you, we've got yet another beautiful school to share with you. Until then, stay bold, stay inspired, and you know what? Connect with a local school. I'll put that out as a challenge. We'll see you same bad time, same bad station next week. Bye, everyone.